So here is my basket full of maps. You can see there are many maps that I've collected over the years here. I've been living here in Sweden for about 11 years now and doing quite a bit of backpacking here while I've been over here. Here's the maps I have set aside for my next trip, and I'm actually going to be trying to create a new trail on this next trip, and I'm very excited about this. I mentioned on my Facebook page from my blog that I've been staying up late, poring over maps, trying to find out a new route. And then I decided, you know what, I'd like to make a video kind of fleshing out my plans, you know, for the sake of documentation and for the sake of getting feedback. You know, maybe somebody out there who is interested in hiking some of these, you know, new trails or old trails, you know, has some questions, or maybe somebody has, you know, already, you know, been in the area and could, you know, help out or whatever. So yeah, so let's get down to it. Now, in order for me to make kind of like these plans in the future, right, I had to buy a whole new map. Check it out. I got a stand up here. Here I am in my office again with my gear and all, and here is this map. It is absolutely massive. This is a huge, this is more of a road map, but actually I was lucky in that I found a big map like this that actually has, albeit very difficult to see, but there are the trails, some of the longer trails are actually marked on this map. Now I'm going to get into the old trails first that I've hiked. That will become relevant later on in the video when I talk about the new trails. You'll understand why. The short of it is that the E1 trail system, which goes all through Europe, it starts in Italy, goes all the way through continental Europe, and then you take a ferry from Denmark to Sweden, then hike north, if you're going northbound, that is. I've hiked almost all of the E1 trails that are in Sweden. There's about 1,200 kilometers of trail. I only have about 70 or 80 kilometers to go of that trail, which I will be doing this summer on my last section hike of the E1. And I've really enjoyed this trail. However, there were some things that I think could be improved. And part of this whole process of creating these new trails too, I think could be an improvement, or at least an alternative, or both, right? Yeah. So I'm going to crudely kind of point out kind of the routes. I guess I should say what area of Sweden we're talking about too, right? So this is, if you look at the mini map here, this is what's known as Västra Svealand. So this is the southern kind of west area. You see on the map here, it's kind of encompassing this area. Here's Norway, right, and here's Sweden. So over here, several different counties, but yeah, here it is. Quite a big chunk. And I'm actually happy to say that I've hiked off this map on several occasions. But let's start here where the E1 trails, that's what I'll focus on first to start. So you go from the south, I mentioned before, you take a ferry, you know, off the map, you start in a town called Vorborg, and you go up and eventually into Gothenburg. Now in Gothenburg, there's another longer trail that goes up to Strömstad, which is called Bohusleden. And this trail momentarily intersects with the E1 trail. You actually hike a little bit of the Bohusleden when you're following the E1 trail system, and then it goes east. When it banks to the east, it goes kind of this way, past, you know, Borås to Ulricehamn, then it goes to Mullsjö, and then it goes up between these two huge lakes. You have Vänern and Vättern, and you go kind of between them. You stick mostly towards Vättern, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Vättern, something like that. So anyway, you go up and that continues. If I move over here, kind of the trail kind of keeps going until it goes up. There's the Ludvika area, and then you're off the map. Past Ludvika, you eventually get to Mora, and then when you get to Mora, you go west into the mountains. Yeah, but that's roughly, very roughly, the E1 trail system. Now, as I said, there are some things that I would improve. There's some parts, for example, from Ulricehamn to Mullsjö where you're just following roads, and I really didn't like that part. If you've been following my blog and you've read some of these trip reports that I've written, I make light of that. I mentioned that it seems kind of slapped together. It seems like somebody just kind of connected it. It's like, oh, well, let's just, connect the trail this way, following roads. And actually, not to sound very conspiracy theory or anything, but it's interesting that the Swedish tourist organization in charge of the E1 trails in Sweden, their website, they used to have a dedicated website devoted to the E1 trails where they had links to different parts of the trail and maps and stuff. That web page has since disappeared. There's very little information now on the E1 trails in Sweden, unfortunately. My blog, where I have trip reports on nearly all, like I said before, it's just this one last section way up in the north that I'll be doing this summer. But there's that. But I mean, I wonder why they took that away. If I were to speculate, I would say it's because there are certain parts of the trail that are really lacking. They require a lot of trail maintenance, and they don't really have anybody that's in charge. I know this because if you go off to the Ludvika area, past there, it's very sparsely populated. You go into some pretty deep woods, and the trail kind of disappears. And I emailed people that were supposed to be in charge of the trail, and I got no response. In fact, I got one response. It was an automated message saying that email address says, it does not exist anymore. And yeah, as far as I am aware, some of those trails, have not been maintained, have not really, they're not up to snuff. And I even I've gotten feedback from other readers of my blog who have told me they have actually hiked, the E1 trail. And I had one in particular, this person said that, yeah, it's just as you described. Still, it's, very, unmarked and overgrown and not maintained. I hope that changes in the future. I could be wrong, right? But it feels like the E1 trail system, which is a decent, very good. It has a lot of very nice parts. Don't get me wrong. There's some hiking, just to give a few examples, right? Like Vildmarksleden outside of Gothenburg is a great trail. You have the northern part of Västra Vätternleden is really nice. You have Bergslagsleden. That's a very nice trail over here, right? That's a very, very nice. That's one of my favorites, actually, Bergslagsleden. But yeah, it could use some improvement, as I keep saying. But okay, I don't like to sit around and just keep saying to myself I wish they would fix it and email this and email that, And on top of that, I wanted new trails to hike and explore. So now back to Bohusleden. So from Gothenburg all the way up to this town called Strömstad. I'm actually walking on the map now. So you start or end Bohusleden in Strömstad. This is a very popular trail. Many people, hike this, especially in the summer, and especially lots of German people. I've met lots of Germans that come and hike this trail. I've done the whole trail in section hikes. I've also gone back and re-hiked this trail, different sections many times. Really, really nice. One of my favorite sections is actually the northern bit, which goes from Strömstad to, and actually if I put the camera in, you can actually see, it says there Bohusleden, where you go the northern bit, and there's a right on the border, there's this beautiful waterfall. If you follow my Facebook page, I did a section hike there in the spring, put some pictures up of the waterfall. They're absolutely gorgeous. And then here's where I did just last month. I did a whole, or not last month, but in the spring, sorry. I did a whole new loop, which takes you into, there's a national park up here on the border of Norway. And then there's a new national park, which actually this map doesn't have yet because it's a newer national park. So here's the Ed Loop, which connects Bohusleden to the town of Ed, in case you want to stock up or if you want to go off the beaten path and explore some really beautiful, nature preserves that are way more kind of untouched and, yeah, like I said, off the beaten path. Now here's the next thing. Here's where things get very exciting for me, right? And I'm approaching now 10 minutes, so if you're here now, you're in for the long haul. But here's the situation. In a few weeks, I'm going to be doing another section hike. My goal is to connect Ed, create a whole new trail in the woods mostly. There's some times I'm going to have to follow some roads, but back roads, which is much better than asphalt, at least too. But yeah, from Ed, I'm going to be hiking to this little village called Upperud, which is around, around here. And here's where I left the trail last time. When I went on a trip just a few weeks ago, I went on Pilgrimsleden, which you can actually see here, right? Pilgrimsleden. That goes like north to south, all the way up until you leave the county, and then it goes into this big nature reserve here, the Glasskogens Nature Reserve. So yeah, if I can connect Ed here, create a trail. There are no trails that go between, as far as I'm aware. And I looked at several different maps and asked around, and there's no trail yet. But I'm going to hopefully get a trail, going, at least in theory, right? Between Ed and Upperud. So you can hike, from Bohusleden to Ed Loop, then Ed to Upperud, and then you can pick up the Pilgrimsleden and go north into this whole big nature reserve, which has many different trails, but one trail goes all the way through it, and then you see the border of Norway is approaching. There's another trail, a separate Pilgrimsleden, not to be confused. There are several different trails here in Sweden called Pilgrimsleden, which just means the Pilgrim's Path, that goes all the way to the border. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Here it is. This trail actually has been recommended by somebody on Facebook. A reader recommended, when I asked for recommendations, he said that Finnskogleden is a really nice trail and I should check it out. It actually starts right outside of this, village, Charlottenberg. But this other trail, this other Pilgrimsleden, it ends kind of close by. It would be very easy to connect. I actually looked at that on another map. I think it's like 20 kilometers or something like that. It's really not that bad. So you could hike this other Pilgrimsleden all the way to the border, hike over, and then start Finnskogleden all the way up north. And then past the map, you can actually, that will be for the future, way in the future. I think it's very possible to connect Finnskogleden then to the trails up north where the E1 goes. The E1, like I said before, it goes kind of that way, but then it loops back to the west, right? Because it goes all the way to the border of Norway up north. After you go from Mora to Sälen on Vasaloppsleden, then you go up into the mountains on other trails. So there, I kind of spit out everything I wanted to kind of just get off my chest about what I'm planning, the future. I'm very, like I said before, I'm very excited about this. I wanted to document to get my thoughts out there, right? But that is the basic plan, right? The old E1 trail system, which goes like so. And I want to make a newer, alternate E1 trail system where you could, when you get off the ferry in the south, after you come from Denmark over to Sweden, you hike north to Gothenburg. Then rather than bank east, you go north, follow Bohusleden all the way up. Then you could take the Ed Loop, right? And then go east, then Pilgrimsleden, and then all the way north, pick up those trails and keep going. Yeah, lots of different options here. And even you could even do, there are many other alternatives when you mix and match these different things. For example, I was thinking a cool section hike would be from Strömstad on Bohusleden all the way to Åmål, which is right over here, because there is a little trail here, a 20-kilometer trail that connects to Pilgrimsleden, which is what I did when I was there last time. So you could do, here to here to there to there. Okay, that's enough. Almost at 15 minutes, but yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing for the future. If you're interested in my planning of trails and what I'm going to be hiking, where I'm going to be hiking, what I'm going to be doing, and all that, that's what's going on. I've had a few people who are interested and had questions about different trails, so hopefully that will help them, or if it's of interest to them. And if you're considering hiking Sweden, if you've not hiked Sweden before and you're looking for a great place to hike, I highly recommend coming over here to Sweden, especially this area of Sweden. It's a great place. There's a great place to have as a place to start, which is Gothenburg. Wonderful city. It's the second largest city in Sweden. here on the West Coast. Been here 11 years, love it, sticking around. Yeah, so definitely check it out. There are lots of different trails. In fact, oh boy, we're over the 15-minute mark. My last thoughts. About half a year ago, I kind of was a bit down. I had kind of I wouldn't say sad, but I was a little bit depressed about, I felt like I'd really exhausted all the resources in my area because I'd hiked kind of, the trails in all directions. Even these more obscure loops I was finding, like Hisnalid and Sandbakslid and like all these little ones. And I was getting frustrated, but all it took was me taking some extra time, taking some extra energy, trying to, think differently about trails. How can I connect things? How can I find new ways, to hike and to get out there in nature? All right, that's enough for me. Thank you for watching. Please, if you have any questions or if you have any feedback, feel free to, drop that in the comments below. And as always, I'll put a link in the description to my blog. I'll put a direct link to my trail guides where you can kind of surf around all the different trip reports that I've done, which many of them, most of them even, have been in this big area here. All right, take care and happy trails to you.